Hey, hi Avalon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Just like I'm sure with all the international students, and this is my state of mind as well at the moment. With like so much uncertainty going on, and
Yeah.
very curious to get many answers. But thank you so much for doing this. We are all of us are so grateful for you.
Oh, absolutely. The news has been unsettling and has caused great confusion and consternation. So, anything that we at Manifest can do to really help allay some fears or provide any kind of guidance or additional information is definitely what we are here to do. So, thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And to all the folks joining in, we'll just take maybe one more minute for the chat to hot up a little bit. But yeah, all of you, please keep dropping your questions in the chat right now. And we have a very detailed session planned for you. And Avalon over here is one of the best people to be helping and guiding you through the situation. But yeah, we'll just get started in less than a minute. On that note, where are all of you guys joining from? Is everyone over here from the United States? Someone outside of the US, maybe Canada, India? Just type the location where you guys are joining from. On that note, I'm joining from Chicago, Avalon. Where are you joining from?
I'm in the New York office, and interestingly enough, I went to law school in Chicago. So, those are my old stomping grounds.
That's amazing. Yeah, always going back to the roots. I love it.
Yes. Are you preparing for the winter? It's going to get cold very soon.
Like, what? As a matter of fact, it already has. It already has gotten a little bit chilly as of today, at least. But yeah, I'm really hoping for like the final bit of the sun to come out before we get the winters.
Absolutely. Well, enjoy it. I do miss Chicago, so enjoy it for me.
Yes. Um, all right. Sai is from Buffalo, New York. Summer inside the US. All right. I believe Avalon, we are at time. So let us get started. I'm sure all of the people joining us are waiting to get their questions answered. But yeah, just to kick us off, I would love to say thank you for doing this for us, Avalon, and so graciously. Firstly, uh, I'm sure you might have been bombarded with like thousands of questions over the past 3 days, but yeah, that is what brings us over here. And to all the folks joining, Avalon is a immigration attorney, and she's fantastic, and she's really been helpful to so many people out there, and one of the best sources to get your questions answered today as well. So on that note, Avalon, before we even begin, how has things been for you, and how have the questions been coming your way? What's the atmosphere out there that you feel with all the uncertainty and the curiosity from people?
Absolutely. And thank you again for having me tonight. As you can imagine, people were already anxious before the proclamation was announced on this past Friday. But now, since this past Friday, people have questions. People are concerned, and unfortunately, some people are receiving misinformation. As you know, the internet is a wonderful tool. However, there is some misinformation out there. And so I'm glad that you're hosting this so that people can get the right information. Yes, things are changing, and things are changing sometimes by the hour. And so hearing from someone at Manifest, someone who is qualified, has the years of experience, is what's going to give your listeners, your viewers, a leg up, and also provide them with some calm, so that they can properly know their next steps and prepare for their next steps.
Absolutely. And that's what I posted a couple of days ago as well, with like so much information coming our way. It is very important for us to be patient and just wait for the right sources to relay the information to us. And I'm so grateful for you, for Manifest, for doing this for us. And on that note, I would just give you the flow, Avalon, to get us started. And yeah, why don't you kick us off with the slides ahead?
Perfect. Thank you. So, as you know, I am an immigration attorney here at Manifest Law. I have just over 10 years of experience in immigration, doing all areas of immigration: family, removal defense, and of course, business immigration. And so my focus areas at Manifest are those talent visas, EB1As and O1s. I also have a particular love for the E1s, E2s, Ls, and also other employment-based visas. For today's meeting, we're going to focus on the timeline of events, what has happened since Friday, and the latest news. I'm going to then provide you with my perspective on how we are interpreting the news and what's coming out almost on a daily basis. And then we're going to talk about some visa alternatives to the H1B that your viewers and your listeners should be prepared to even have a discussion about. We'll finally end with next steps and then open up for a Q&A session afterward.
Awesome.
So, yes. On September 19th in the afternoon, President Trump and the current administration announced the $100,000 H1B fee during a live stream and then directed the Department of Homeland Security to draft the rules. September 19th, that very same Friday, around 9:30 p.m., the White House then issued a proclamation restricting entry into America without this $100,000 payment as effective of September 21st. The very next day, on September 20th, between 2 and 4 p.m. in the afternoon, the White House press secretary then clarified that this fee of $100,000 was going to be a one-time fee and only for new visas. However, there's still some ambiguity and some gray areas that we must remain cognizant of that as things develop and progress. September 20th at 5:22 p.m., both USCIS and CBP issued guidance confirming petitions filed before September 21st would be unaffected. Also, they issued guidance indicating that current visas are going to remain valid. And they also, however, allowed for some gray areas to remain as there continues to be questions on H1B renewals and extensions. Those particular visa categories still remain unresolved as it pertains to how the government is going to handle those visas, renewals and extensions. September 21st at 12:01 a.m., the new policy takes effect. Of course, uncertainty continues on renewals, extensions, exemptions, and even the lottery impact. However, September 21st at 12 noon, USCIS issued and announced an FAQ, which clarified that the $100,000 fee applies to any new H1B petition filed after September 21st, 2025, not just those that are going to be filed during the 2026 lottery filings. This is key. And then as of September 22nd at 12 noon, DHS proposed what's now referred to as the wage-based H1B lottery system, and we're now in the 30-day period where people can now, in the public, can now comment on this proposed rule. So we see here that Trump signed the executive order. The executive action directs DHS and the Department of Labor to draft new guidance and new rules. There is immediate uncertainty, one-time annual fee versus annual fee. However, where things were still developing. The proclamation came out, as you can see, the proclamation, a snippet here. The White House wanted to restrict certain entry of certain non-immigrant workers. And the key point as of September 19th at 9:30 p.m. was that entry into America was restricted unless the employer, not the employee, but the employer paid the $100,000 fee. White House then, of course, as I mentioned, issued some clarifications on September 20th between 2 p.m. and 4:16 p.m. The press secretary released a statement indicating that the fee is one time and not annual. It applies to new H-1B visas, not renewals. And current H-1B visa holders abroad would not need to pay for re-entry. However, keep in mind, this statement was not reflected in the proclamation text, and therefore some ambiguity still remained as of September 20th. USCIS and CBP issued some guidance later on that afternoon around 5:22 p.m. So it made some clarifications as to which petitions would be affected. However, it was still unclear as of September 20th if it was a one-time or a fee or a recurring fee. However, USCIS did officially confirm that current H-1B holders, people who have an H-1B visa now, may travel internationally without paying the fee. As of September 22nd at 12 p.m., here's additional guidance. The $100,000 fee applies broadly. It covers any new H-1B petition filed after the 21st, and it is not limited to any 2026 lottery filings. So those individuals who were selected in the 2026 lottery are also going to have to pay for this fee when they apply for their visa. But there was, unfortunately, some conflicting information. The CBP indicated that the fee only applies to petitions filed from outside of America. However, USCIS only carved out for renewals. So this is still an area that we're waiting on further information to come from official sources. As of September 22nd at 3 p.m., this is where we stand. An executive action has now tasked USCIS and DHS with implementing this proclamation that came out on Friday. The guidance leaves several open questions. Number one, renewals. Many people are currently on H-1B visa status, and they're asking or they're concerned about what happens when they apply for a renewal, what happens when they change their employer, or they apply even for a change of status. So let's say they were on one particular visa, such as an F1 visa, and now they're applying for a change of status to H1B. There still is some open questions around that and concerning that particular area. What about for individuals who have to go outside of America for stamping and then tries to re-enter America? Is the fee going to affect them? There's also, thirdly, some information and some open questions surrounding this national interest exemption. What about doctors? The information has indicated that there may be an exemption in the areas of national interest for doctors and residents. But keep in mind, this did not indicate that there would be exemptions for all healthcare professionals. So what happens with nurses and other individuals who work in the healthcare industry? There's still some questions and ambiguity around there. So our advice at Manifest is to avoid international travel until there is more clarification. Okay, and so we should be preparing for some alternatives. What are we saying now at Manifest? We believe that the administration is framing these new changes within the H-1B visa system as an economic and a national security issue. That is their focus for this current administration. And their ultimate goal is to really encourage domestic STEM training. And we want to really restrict the program to those who have extraordinary talents. But there are some alternatives that people really do need to keep in mind when it comes to exploring other visa options and not only limit yourselves to the H-1Bs. I know the H-1B is a popular visa that many people look to and they come to America expecting to apply for. However, there are certain alternatives that we should also be prepared to think about. And examine your resume, look at your CV, look at your experience to see if you fall into any of these other categories, such as the O's. We have O1As and O1Bs. There's also the EB1 visa category, EB1As, EB1Bs also for researchers and scientists. People should be interested in pursuing that if they are qualified. There's also the EB2 NIW visa, J1s as a specialty visa, E3s that are specific to Australians, and also the TN visas that are specific to Canadians and Mexicans as well. We're also advising individuals that they should prepare contingency plans for workplace mobility. This is where Manifest can help. The J1 visa is a visa that can be used not just for trainees, which is sometimes how people think about the J1 visa, but it can also be used for individuals who are specialists, such as research scholar programs. The O1 is a great alternative for individuals who have an extraordinary ability, where the focus is on you and what you have done. Do you have press and media coverage? Are you published? Do you command a high salary, and you've been doing so for a significant period of your career as compared to others? Have you made original contributions to your field, to your industry in your particular field of study and practice? There are also country-specific visas that people should be aware of and should also look into. The E3 visa for Australians in particular, similar to the H1B in that you do have to have a specialty occupation, but it's also a visa that's available and does not carry with it this new $100,000 fee. There's also the TN visas. We know that the TN visas have multiple categories in which someone can apply. The TNs can be used for doctors. It can be used for attorneys, accountants, even management consultants. And so these are alternatives where people can think about, and we at Manifest can provide individuals with this guidance so they can think about alternatives and be properly prepared. So here's some more information about the J1 visa. So we have the J1 Specialist Program for experts with specialized knowledge or skills. Now, there is a limitation. It's maximum for 1 year. However, you can garner more years by exiting and returning on a J1 visa. The focus with this specialist program is for training, knowledge sharing, and cultural or professional exchanges. The J1, as it pertains to research and scholar programs, are for those researchers or professionals, but it can also be used for private companies. Now, the duration period is longer. It's up to 5 years, so long as you continue to participate in the program. On this J1, your spouse can work as well, and it involves research or even collaborative professional projects. For both of these, both the specialist program and the research scholar program, there is the 2-year home residency rule that applies only if triggered. So we would have to check on the country of origin for the individual applying for this particular visa to see if it would apply for them or not. But there are some countries that do impose the 2-year home residency rule. As we mentioned before, we have the O1A qualification. So you can see on the screen, there are 8 categories. And in order to apply for this visa, you must meet at least 3 of the listed 8. It is valid for 3 years initially, and you can renew per year after that as long as you need. So you can see here on the screen, the first one is recognized awards. Then we have memberships in associations, which require you to have outstanding achievements. So we want to stay away from those associations that typically only require a filing fee or an application fee. And so they want to really focus on associations that require you to have an outstanding and exceptional professional history. If you've been in the press and there's been press coverage about you or work you've been involved in major press and media. Then there's also if you've participated as a judge, either individually or on a panel. You should also be able to submit under that criteria. Original contributions of major significance. Have you invented a patent? Have you developed something that is being used by others in your industry or even outside of your industry? Let's talk about it. Authorship of scholarly articles. Have you written anything that's been published? Has it been peer reviewed? Have you published repeatedly in certain large-scale media and press? That can be one of the criteria you submit for. Also, performing a leading or critical role. Don't use those terms interchangeably. There are differences as opposed to whether your role was leading or whether your role was critical at a distinguished organization. And then, of course, having a high salary or significant remuneration for what you've been doing. So we, as Manifest, we are prepared to have a discussion with you and go through your background, go through your history, and see exactly which of these 8 categories you would qualify for in order for us to apply for you for an O1A visa. And of course, the country-specific visas. E3 are for Australians. So Australian nationals in specialty occupations. Similar to the H1B, but there's generally some more flexibility. It is renewable and it is accessible. So it can be renewed indefinitely in 2-year increments. But it does, however, require a valid job offer where there is a bachelor's degree required, and the candidate must have degree and work experience equivalent to fulfill it. Now, for the TN visas, it is specifically for Canada and Mexico, and it is for designated professional occupations. So there is a list as to which occupations will qualify for the TN visa. It is very STEM friendly. Okay, so think of common TN roles that have applied and been successful were computer systems analysts, engineers in various fields, mathematicians, biologists, chemists, and statisticians. It is a fast processing visa, often issued directly at the border or consulate with streamlined procedures. But if you have any questions about this, please contact Manifest so we can properly guide you and provide you with the right information. So the question you're all thinking about right now are, what are the next steps? Well, right now, there's been some rulemaking changes under the Administrative Procedure Act that is still required for prevailing wages. And the most recent communication received and released by both the Department of Homeland Security and the White House is that there will be an impact on the H1B lottery system for next year. Now, of course, we do expect there to be some legal challenges and advocacy responses to this proclamation and the proposed rules. And so that's why things are still in flux and there are still many gray areas or open questions that remain unanswered. However, we do anticipate here at Manifest that there will be some legal challenges. And so all H1B holders, current holders, if you're even thinking about moving to another employer, or if you're going to think about, applying for a change of status from a current visa to an H1B visa, please, we are urging you to really consult experienced immigration attorneys who can properly guide you in this tumultuous time that we're in. Here are some frequently asked questions that we've seen since the news came out on Friday. The most frequently asked question is the $100,000 fee one-time or annual based on the latest guidance? As of today, September 23rd, the latest guidance is that the fee is a one-time charge for new H1B petitions filed after September 21st, 2025. It is not an annual levy, nor does it automatically apply to existing H1B holders who are filing extensions with the same employer. There does, however, remain some ambiguity in how USCIS will define renewals. So we have to wait for the additional guidance and updated guidance as it pertains to renewals. Another question we've been getting frequently is, does the fee apply if I have an extension with an approved I-140 and I'm continuing to work with my same employer? So the recent USCIS FAQs carved out H1B renewals from the $100,000 fee. However, renewals are most conservatively, if you were to define what a renewal is, means same employer, same role, however, you are requesting additional time. So in this case, as of today, September 23rd, there is no $100,000 fee should apply, regardless of whether the worker has an approved I-140 or not. The I-140 itself does not affect the fee obligation. It is the employer and employee relationship that is the key factor. Another question, does changing employers on an H1B with or without an approved I-140 have a fee? So if there's a straight extension with the same employer, we're interpreting the rules to be that there will be no fee. However, if you're changing employers, we're treating that as being a new petition, and the conservative assumption is to assume that the $100,000 fee is going to apply, even if the individual already has an approved I-140. Now, there's a great amount of confusion around change of status to H1B petitions. So, for example, if you're on F1 and you have your OPT, or you're in another valid status, what's going to happen if you're now applying to change your status to H1B? This remains a gray area. This remains an ambiguous area. So when you're looking at the form I-129, you're going to see that the change of status selection is distinct from the renewal selection. And so it's generally, when you apply for a change of status, it's generally going to be processed as a new petition. Under the FAQ language, the $100,000 fee is likely to apply to change of status filings. And so until USCIS really clarifies, we're going to assume on a conservative side that the approach is to assume the fee will apply in change of status applications. But of course, there's a lot of information out there, and I just presented you with even more information. But so if you have a question or need any immigration help, please do not hesitate to reach out to Manifest. Our contact information, email, website, and phone number and text message is on the screen. And of course, you can always follow us on Instagram to obtain any additional information. And so I'm going to leave that on the screen so people can take down the information.
Thank you for that information, Avalon. I really got many of my doubts cleared just in the last 30 minutes, but really appreciate that. I'm sure many people still have questions upcoming in terms of their specific situations. So
Yes.
This is something that we can accommodate in the time that we have left.
Yes, I believe we still have quite some more time. So absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, we can just give them a few or maybe a minute, and to just capture this information, and then we can move to their questions.
Absolutely.
So while we are doing that, Avalon, the first question that comes to my mind, and this is a very interesting caveat over there, where it's been clearly mentioned that any filing after September 21st is going to be having that 100K fee. So does that apply not just to the 2026 March lottery, but to H1B cap filings from this point onwards as well?
Yes, that's how we are interpreting the news.
Very interesting. Yes, I'm sure I can already see so many questions popping up in the chat. But yeah, for your case specific questions, guys, I would definitely recommend to reach out to Manifest Law, and one of their attorneys can help you in more detail. But yeah, Avalon, if this is a good time, let's tackle the questions in the chat.
Absolutely. So would you like to indicate which questions and go through the questions?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I can just read it out for you.
Perfect.
All right. So Manish Giri is asking a question. I believe what he's asking for is his H1B was approved in March, and he's he's waiting for his H1B stamp. I believe he would be traveling back to his home country. So, is this something that is a safe situation for him to travel back to his home country and get the visa stamping done, or does someone need to wait for a few more days to get the clarity on that?
For this particular individual, I would definitely advise them to speak to an attorney at Manifest. It does sound like it's a case specific situation. However, remember, the government is really indicating, and we are interpreting on a more conservative side, that if you are doing a new entry or a new petition, that there will be a fee that's applied. However, in this case, his petition was approved before before September 21st. So I would encourage him to speak out, to come and talk to one of us at Manifest, so we can give him proper guidance as to whether or not he should travel to his home country or not.
Makes sense. Absolutely on point, Avalon over there. Ricky M is asking a question, and his question goes like this. So, is there any clarity now on which areas can be waived for the 100K fee under national interest? And will having NIW I-140 approved qualify for that?
So as of right now, there has been some recent information about the national waiver or the national interest. And so, but the only area that has been specified is for healthcare professionals, doctors and residents. We're still waiting for additional guidance, and we're still waiting for additional information to come forward from the government and from DHS, USCIS, as to which other categories would apply for this waiver or would be exempted from this waiver. So when it comes to hospital researchers, professors, scientists, nurses, there's still some ambiguity that's there as it pertains to them, because the verbiage that we saw specifically said doctors and residents. And so we're waiting to see exactly how far is this going to extend to when it comes to healthcare professionals.
Absolutely, that makes sense. Um, a question came from Bhavya, and this person is asking, what about change of status from B2 visa status to H1B? Does the fee apply to them as well?
So as we're reading it conservatively, because you're changing your status from a B to an H1B, and it is going to be a new petition after September 21st, then the fee would apply, because it is a new petition and it has been filed after September 21st, and you're now changing your status. So we're going to assume that the fee is going to be required for someone changing their status from a B1 to an H1B.
Got it. And I actually got this question multiple times in my LinkedIn chat as well. So Satvika is asking, what happens when a person on a F1 STEM OPT changes to H4 EAD? Will there be any one-time fee paid in this situation?
So if a person is changing to an H4 EAD, that is a dependent visa. So that particular application is not the primary H1B visa, it's an H4. So we are going to anticipate that for the H4, there will not be a fee. However, we're going to wait until there's specific information about H4 visas being applied for. But if the H1B is a new petition, then we are going to anticipate of the fee applying for that new petition.
Got it. Okay, I believe you already answered this, Avalon, but yeah, just for clarity, we can answer this for again. As an F1 student with a STEM master's degree in the US, what immigration options do I have besides F1, CPT, OPT, STEM OPT to remain in the US long term? And specifically, is it possible to self petition for a green card without employer sponsorship?
So That question is in two parts. So number one, if you're going to look at other alternatives, now of course you're going to need to make a consultation or schedule a consultation with an attorney at Manifest, who would be able to look through your resume, your CV, and see what you've been doing while you've been pursuing your master's degree in STEM or any other degree for that matter. But as we discussed earlier, there are alternatives. So depending on what you have done, how much you've published, for example, if you have developed any patents that have now been approved, if you have been in the press or the media, you founded a company, let's say, there are alternatives that could be available to you. As for which one, is for you specifically, of course, we're going to have a one-on-one consultation where we do a deep dive into your areas of expertise and your experience.
Got it. And this is just out of personal curiosity, I've learned, but and I've been bombarded with this question, frankly. But with like all of the situation unfolding, how do you see the number of O1 petitions or EB1 petitions going up, specifically in the next 6 months, and in maybe like the longer term going forward as well?
Oh, yes. So because these are viable alternatives for many people, because even if you are on an H1B, we're going to anticipate and assume that you are already extraordinary, or have been building a profile that is extraordinary. And so for individuals who are looking for alternatives, I especially anticipate that there being a sharp increase in the number of people who are applying for O1 visas, both the O1As and the O1Bs as well. Some people are hidden entertainers and artists, and so they may be thinking about applying for an O1B, but then the EB1. So we have the EB1A for extraordinary abilities, EB1B for researchers and scientists. And so people should think about that. And do expect it to increase, what the ripple effects will be with the increase of people who do apply for these particular visas. We're not sure of the entire ripple effects yet. However, I do anticipate there being an increase of people who do apply for these alternative visas.
That makes absolute sense. Thank you so much for that, Avlon. All right. Ruchika has a question. If we have an approved petition from previous years, but don't have a valid H1 stamp as of now, is it okay to go to the home country for stamping without incurring the fee?
So that's something that we discussed earlier.
Right.
So now this falls into that gray area because you had it approved from before September 21st. Does the fee apply? And now, but you're leaving the country to get a visa stamp. So is the fee going to apply at that juncture? And so right now we are advising our clients, our potential clients, if you don't have to travel, don't. But I do think this also sounds like a case specific question. And so I would advise or recommend for you to make an appointment for a consultation so that we can properly go over your history and your situation and give you the best possible advice.
Got it. All right. Bhavya is asking the same question. So, okay, we have that covered. Vinit, what kind of membership with associations qualify for the O1? Vinit is asking that question.
Sure. And so it would be some of the same memberships and for associations that someone applying for the EB1A would apply. However, they're specific to you. So, someone who has an engineering background or a STEM background, they may apply for IEEE. But someone who has a business background, there may be a different association for them. So it really is going to be case specific and your experience specific. Because if you don't have an engineering background and you don't have 10 years of experience in engineering and you apply to be a member of IEEE, you're not going to get accepted. So you really have to look at specific memberships for your area, in your area of expertise, your industry, your focus.
Got it. And just expanding on that note, Avlon, do you think this is the right time to look for visa alternatives? And having said that, if someone is, let's say, creating their profile for an O1 and someone is creating their profile for an EB1, what should be the timeline that they can be expecting, and what are the right next steps that they can be looking forward to?
Quite simply put, if you have any questions, you should be talking to an immigration attorney who is experienced. Notice I did not just say speak to any attorney. You want to speak to experienced immigration attorneys. And so, of course, if you have any questions about any possible alternatives or your future and how you're planning out the trajectory of your career and living in America and how you can stay in America in status, of course, please speak to an attorney. Now, when it comes to building out your profile, that's going to be, I'm going to give you the lawyer answer, Sohan. It depends. And so that it depends on the individual. Someone, graduated with a master's degree and they have a published thesis, for example, and so that can count as one of their authorship. A part of their authorship criteria they submit for, whether for the O1A or the EB1 or the EB1A. But if someone, let's say, has a master's degree and never published their thesis, their master's thesis, they may have to go down a different path. Everyone has their own areas of expertise and different things that they have been doing while they have been a professional in America. And so it really just does depend on what the person has and what other areas do we need to build out. And expand upon so that they have a strong chance when they're submitting their application. Some people, I meet them, I give them consultations. I say, you know what, we can file in 2 months because they've been a professional for 15, 20 years. And then there are other individuals who say, you know what, you may need an additional 6 months. You may need an additional 12 months in order to build out your portfolio to have a viable chance at applying for these extraordinary ability visas. So again, Sohan, here's the lawyer answer for that question. It depends.
Got it. Yeah, but even if I can add my personal POV to that, I would say definitely like this would be the right time to go ahead for alternative options. And not being a lawyer, I can definitely say that it is the right time to bet on yourself, whether it is through alternative visas, whether it is through like alternative solutions. And I feel the O1 and the EB1 can be a great alternative at this point of time.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Yes, bet on yourself, but don't try to apply them by yourself. You
Yeah.
need an experienced attorney. This is not the time to do it yourself. Yeah. Okay, you want to do it yourself, you build a bookshelf. Don't apply for a visa petition on your own in this current administration.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. All right. So I like this person does not have a name, but their question is: any news on the lawsuit, please, or exemption for physicians?
So we are still waiting for the lawsuits and the number of lawsuits. We are anticipating for lawsuits to be filed. However, as I mentioned earlier, right now there does seem to be a carve out or a caveat for those individuals who are doctors, physicians, or residents, that this fee would not apply to you. So we're still waiting on exactly the number of lawsuits and when the lawsuits will come out. We're waiting on more information about that.
Got it. And following on that, Shubham Ashta is asking a question: what are the chances that there might be a reduction or revocation of this H1B fee?
There's always a chance. There's always a chance it could be reduced. There's always a chance it could, be not be implemented. However, right now, as of today, September 23rd, the fee and having that fee be there does apply. We'll wait and see exactly what happens, with any potential changes. As I mentioned, this area is in flux and it remains a gray area as to the actual implementation of the fee and how USCIS treats new petitions. And so we'll just wait and see what happens.
Absolutely. Okay. A couple of last questions. And guys, if you have any more questions, do keep them coming in the chat. But yeah, from what I see on my screen over here, again, this person doesn't have a name, but LinkedIn user is asking if we have a master's thesis but don't have patents, would I still qualify for the O1?
Well, remember, the O1 has 8 criteria and you must submit for at least 3 of them. So I just use master's thesis being published as one example. But of course, you don't want to just have one authorship or one publication. You should have multiple. And so at this point, I would strongly recommend you contacting Manifest and having a consultation with one of our attorneys and co-counsels who could properly vet and go through your experience and your background and your CV to see exactly what you have done. And then we can properly guide you as to whether you should apply for an O1, or maybe there might even be an alternate visa you could apply for instead of the O1.
Absolutely. I believe we answered this question in some aspect, Aflon, but Pratik Lahoti is asking, will change of employer for existing visa holders be affected by the entire 100K fee?
Yes, we're anticipating so, because you're going to be filing a new petition.
Very interesting. Um, All right. So I believe that brings us to the end of the questions in the chat. Again, if you guys have any questions, do keep them coming. But one final question that I had for you, Avlon, and I'm sure this is going through everybody's mind right now. What can be a timeline? I would say a good enough timeline where we could be having all of the clarity with like the proclamation going into the next stages. What can be a good enough timeline for us to get all of the answers and then maybe take the right decisions going forward?
Certainly, and that's a very good question. As you know, as you've been following in the news since Friday, things have been in flux almost by the hour. You know, when I went through the timeline, you saw how quickly the news was coming out. Now,
Right.
right now, with the proposed rule that DHS issued with the public registrar, we are now in a 30-day period where the public is able to comment on the proposed rule. And so I would mention to your listeners and your viewers, hey, if you have a comment about it, if you think the fee should be reduced, or if you think the fee should be revoked, make your comment known, make your perspective known, so the government can really be aware of how this can or will impact other people, both employers and immigrants themselves. And so if you're looking at a timeline as to when we're going to have all of our answers met and answered, I don't know a specific timeline, but I think the 30-day period is a good starting point, because the public does have 30 days and have to make comments. And after those 30 days, when they've given their comments and their feedback, then the government we go through all of those comments, those feedbacks, and then make and publish their final changes or implementation to this new proclamation. So that's when we should anticipate some good questions being answered.
Got it. Okay, so Shubham is asking, is there a particular website or a link that they can go ahead and give their comments at?
Yes, so you'll have to Google it, but there is a specific link that you can find once you Google.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah, I believe that answers all the questions that we had, and yeah, the others are just the same questions, but in other forms of words and sentences. But yeah, having said that, Avlon, this has been incredible. Okay, another question came. Sorry. What's the probability of the H1 petition being halted by the court due to losses? I feel you already answered that, but yeah, just for new listeners, if we can do that once again.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a probability, there's a chance. We are anticipating lawsuits to be filed. We are anticipating there to be a legal response. However, those haven't come out as yet, but we're waiting, and we're expecting there to be some type of response from lawsuits, and it may go to the federal courts, but there will be some challenges. However, none have come forward yet, so we're just going to wait and see what happens.
Got it. All right. So I believe that brings us to the end of all the questions that we had today, Avlon. But thank you so much. You have no idea. This has been incredibly helpful for our entire audience, for me personally as well. So thank you so much for that. I am taking away a lot of clarity as to what I came with over here. So thank you for that. And yeah, my personal perspective on the entire situation would just be to be patient at this point of time. Do not trust the misinformation that is floating around on the web, and please consult a lawyer. And you have their contact details right in front of you, so do contact Manifest for all your questions, any case specific question. But yeah, please take the right help and the right direction going forward. But yeah, on that note, Avlon, thank you so much for doing this, and incredibly grateful for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me and hosting this event. As I mentioned before, my last final comments, I don't mean to sound redundant, but this is really not the time to do it yourself. And this is not the time to rely on what you're hearing from even your friends, other people with a valid visa, or what the internet is saying. There's too much misinformation out there. And our role at Manifest is to provide you with updated information, the most recent news, the proper interpretation of the laws, so that you can make the best possible decisions for yourself and your family moving forward. So I encourage everyone who has any kind of questions, especially when it comes to alternatives for the visa, to reach out. And we can really go through your history and your background and answer all questions you have. Thank you again so much, Sohan, for this time.
Thank you so much. You have a great evening, Avlon. And thank you so much, guys. You guys have a great day, great evening, great afternoon, wherever you are. But please take care and be careful throughout the entire situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Just end.